Once upon a time, in a cozy little farmhouse nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a tiny mouse named Pip. Pip was no ordinary mouse, for while his brothers and sisters were perfectly content scurrying about the pantry, looking for crumbs and cheese, Pip spent his days gazing up at the vast blue sky through the kitchen window, dreaming of something much bigger than himself. Every morning, as the golden sunlight streamed through the glass, Pip would climb onto the windowsill and watch the world wake up around him. He would see the farmer's rooster strutting proudly across the yard, the barn cat stretching lazily in the warm sun, and the magnificent horses galloping freely across the meadow. But what captured Pip's heart most of all were the beautiful birds soaring high above the treetops, their wings catching the morning light as they danced through the clouds. "Oh, how I wish I could fly," Pip would whisper to himself, his tiny paws pressed against the cool glass. "If only I could soar through the sky like those wonderful birds. I could see the whole world spread out below me." Pip's family thought his dreams were quite silly indeed. His mother would shake her head and say, "Pip, my dear little one, mice are meant to stay close to the ground. We find our happiness in warm corners and tasty morsels, not in foolish flights of fancy." His father would pat him gently on the head and chuckle. "Son, you must learn to be practical. Dreams of flying are all well and good, but a mouse's place is here in the farmhouse, safe and sound." Even his brothers and sisters would giggle when they caught him staring longingly at the sky. "Pip wants to be a bird," they would tease. "Next thing you know, he'll be trying to lay eggs and build a nest in the oak tree." But Pip paid no attention to their laughter. Deep in his heart, he knew that his dream was more than just a silly wish. Every night, as he curled up in his cozy bed of soft cotton scraps, he would close his eyes and imagine himself soaring through the starlit sky, the wind beneath his tiny arms, the world stretching endlessly in all directions. One particularly beautiful spring morning, as Pip was enjoying his usual spot on the windowsill, he noticed something extraordinary happening in the farmer's yard. A group of colorful hot air balloons was slowly rising into the sky, their bright fabric billowing in the gentle breeze. Pip pressed his nose against the glass and watched in wonder as the balloons drifted higher and higher, carrying their passengers on a magical journey through the clouds. "That's it," Pip exclaimed, his whiskers twitching with excitement. "If I can't fly like a bird, perhaps I can find another way to reach the sky." From that moment on, Pip began to study everything he could about flying. He listened carefully to the conversations of the barn swallows, who nested in the rafters, learning about wind currents and weather patterns. He observed how the dandelion seeds floated gracefully on the breeze, and how the maple tree's helicopter seeds spun through the air before gently landing on the ground. Day after day, Pip collected small scraps of fabric, bits of string, and anything else he thought might help him build his own flying contraption. He worked tirelessly in a secret corner of the attic, where dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight and old treasures lay forgotten under white sheets. His first attempt was a simple pair of wings made from fallen feathers and tied together with thin pieces of yarn. Pip climbed onto a low chair and flapped his makeshift wings with all his might, but instead of soaring gracefully through the air, he tumbled straight down onto a pile of soft rags below. "Well, that didn't work quite as planned," Pip said to himself, brushing the dust from his fur. But he wasn't discouraged. Every great inventor knew that failure was simply a stepping stone to success. His second attempt involved a tiny parachute made from a colorful handkerchief he'd found in the attic. Pip tied the corners together and attached long strings to create a harness for himself, He climbed onto the highest shelf he could reach and jumped, hoping the parachute would carry him gently to the ground. Instead, the handkerchief folded in on itself, and Pip found himself spinning wildly through the air before landing with a soft thud in a basket of yarn. That's not quite right either, Pip mused, untangling himself from the colorful threads. But his determination only grew stronger with each attempt. As the days passed, Pip's experiments became more creative and ambitious. He tried building a balloon from a large soap bubble, but it popped the moment he touched it. He attempted to create a glider from a fallen leaf and some twigs, but it simply fluttered to the ground like autumn foliage. He even tried tying himself to a cluster of helium balloons left over from the farmer's daughter's birthday party, but the balloons weren't quite strong enough to lift him off the ground. Each failure taught Pip something new about the science of flight, and with every lesson learned, his dream grew brighter and more vivid. He began to understand that flying wasn't just about getting off the ground. It was about understanding the delicate balance between weight and lift, between ambition and physics. One evening, as Pip was working on his latest invention, a wise old owl named Oliver landed on the windowsill outside the attic. Oliver had been watching Pip's experiments with great interest, and he was impressed by the little mouse's determination and creativity. "Young Pip," Oliver called softly through the glass, "I've been observing your efforts to take to the sky. May I offer you some advice?" Pip's eyes grew wide with excitement. Oliver was known throughout the farm as the wisest creature in the entire valley, and his knowledge of flight was legendary among all the animals. "Oh yes, please," Pip squeaked, pressing his tiny paws against the window. "I would be honored to hear your wisdom, Oliver." The owl's amber eyes twinkled with kindness as he spoke. "I've seen many creatures dream of flight, little one, but few have shown the persistence and ingenuity that you possess. However, I must tell you that the greatest flights often begin not with grand gestures, but with small steps and careful preparation." Pip listened intently as Oliver continued. "True flight requires not just the desire to soar, but the wisdom to understand one's own limitations and the creativity to find solutions that others might overlook. The most successful aviators are those who learn from every failure and never stop believing in their dreams." "But Oliver," Pip said, his voice filled with both hope and uncertainty, "what if I'm too small? What if mice simply weren't meant to fly?" The owl ruffled his feathers thoughtfully before responding. "Size, my dear Pip, is not what determines whether a creature can achieve its dreams. I've seen tiny hummingbirds outmaneuver the largest hawks, and I've watched delicate butterflies travel thousands of miles on wings as thin as paper. What matters is not how big you are, but how big your heart is, and how determined your spirit remains." As Oliver spread his magnificent wings and prepared to take flight, he left Pip with one final piece of advice. "Remember, young dreamer, the sky belongs to all who dare to reach for it. Your size may be small, but your dreams are mighty, and that is where your true strength lies." With that, Oliver soared gracefully into the star-filled night, leaving Pip alone with his thoughts and his unwavering determination. The little mouse looked up at the twinkling stars above and felt a renewed sense of purpose flowing through his tiny heart that night. Pip couldn't sleep. Oliver's words echoed in his mind like a gentle song, filling him with a warmth he had never felt before. He climbed back onto his favorite windowsill and gazed up at the moon, its silver light casting long shadows across the farmyard below. "The sky belongs to all who dare to reach for it," Pip whispered to himself, his tiny voice filled with wonder. "My dreams are mighty, and that is where my true strength lies." As he sat there in the peaceful darkness, Pip noticed something he had never seen before. In the distance, barely visible against the night sky, tiny sparks of light were dancing through the air. At first, he thought they might be falling stars, but as he watched more carefully, he realized they were fireflies, their gentle glow creating a magical pathway through the darkness. "Of course," Pip exclaimed softly, his whiskers twitching with excitement. "They're so small, even smaller than me in some ways, yet they light up the entire night sky with their beauty." This gave Pip a wonderful new idea. Instead of trying to fly during the day, when everyone could see his attempts and possibly laugh at his failures, perhaps he could work on his dream under the cover of night, when the world was quiet and peaceful. The next evening, as soon as his family had settled down to sleep, Pip crept quietly back to his secret workshop in the attic. He had been thinking all day about Oliver's advice, and he realized that maybe he had been approaching his dream in the wrong way. Instead of trying to copy exactly what the birds did, perhaps he needed to find his own unique path to the sky. Pip began to study the fireflies more closely, watching how they moved through the air with such grace and purpose. Unlike the birds, who relied on powerful wings and strong muscles, the fireflies seemed to dance on the breeze, riding the air currents like tiny boats on an invisible river. "Maybe that's the secret," Pip thought to himself. "Maybe I don't need to fight against the wind, but learn to work with it instead." He remembered the dandelion seeds he had observed earlier, how they floated so effortlessly on even the gentlest breeze. This gave him an idea for a completely new type of flying machine, one that would work with nature rather than against it. Pip spent the next several nights gathering the finest materials he could find. He collected silk threads from spider webs, being very careful not to disturb their creators. He found the softest down feathers that had fallen from the baby ducks who lived by the pond. He even managed to obtain a small piece of gossamer fabric that the farmer's wife had dropped while hanging laundry on the line. Working by moonlight, Pip began to weave these materials together with the skill of a master craftsman. His tiny paws moved with surprising dexterity as he created something that had never existed before, something that was uniquely his own invention. As the nights passed, Pip's creation began to take shape. It wasn't like anything the birds used, nor did it resemble the hot air balloons he had seen in the farmer's yard. Instead, it was something entirely new, something that seemed to capture the very essence of dreams themselves. The contraption was delicate and beautiful, with gossamer wings that shimmered in the moonlight and silk cords that would allow Pip to guide his flight. It was designed to catch the gentlest breezes and lift him skyward with the grace of a floating feather. But even as his invention neared completion, Pip faced a new challenge. His family had begun to notice his nighttime absences, and they were growing worried about his strange behavior. "Pip, dear," his mother said one morning, "you look so tired lately. Are you feeling quite well?" His father nodded in agreement. "Son, we've heard strange sounds coming from the attic at night. You're not up to any mischief, are you?" Pip's heart raced as he tried to think of what to say. He didn't want to lie to his family, but he also wasn't ready to share his secret project with them. He knew they would try to stop him, not out of meanness, but out of love and concern for his safety. "I'm just fine," Pip replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've been having trouble sleeping lately, so I've been exploring different parts of the house. The attic is very peaceful at night." His siblings exchanged worried glances. They had never seen their brother act so mysteriously before, and they weren't sure what to make of his secretive behavior. Pip, his sister Daisy said gently. "We're your family. You can tell us anything. We'll always love you no matter what." For a moment, Pip felt tears welling up in his eyes. He loved his family dearly, and it hurt him to keep such an important secret from them. But he also knew that his dream was too precious to risk having it crushed before he had a chance to see if it could come true. "I know you love me," Pip said softly, "and I love all of you too. But sometimes we have to follow our hearts, even when others don't understand." That night, as Pip put the finishing touches on his flying machine, he made a decision that would change everything. He would attempt his first real flight the very next evening, when the moon was full and the air was calm. If it worked, he would finally prove to himself and everyone else that dreams could come true. If it didn't work, well, at least he would know that he had tried his very best. As he carefully folded his creation and hid it away until tomorrow night, Pip felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness flowing through his tiny body. He had worked so hard and come so far, but now the moment of truth was finally approaching. Looking out at the star-filled sky, Pip whispered a quiet prayer to whatever forces might be listening. "Please," he said, "let my dream take flight. Let me show the world that even the smallest mouse can reach for the stars." The next day passed more slowly than any day in Pip's entire life. He tried to act normal around his family, but his mind was completely focused on the adventure that awaited him when darkness fell. Every minute felt like an hour, and every hour felt like a lifetime. Finally, as the sun set behind the rolling hills, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Pip knew that his moment had arrived. His heart was beating so fast he was sure everyone in the farmhouse could hear it, but he took a deep breath and reminded himself of Oliver's wise words. Tonight, he would discover whether his mighty dreams could truly lift him to the sky. As the farmhouse settled into peaceful slumber, Pip crept silently through the darkened hallways, his precious creation tucked carefully under his tiny arm. The moonlight streaming through the windows cast long silver shadows across the floor, and Pip felt as though he were walking through a magical dreamland. He made his way to the back door, where a small gap beneath the wooden frame had always served as the perfect mouse-sized entrance to the outside world. Tonight, that same gap would serve as his gateway to the greatest adventure of his life. The cool night air greeted Pip as he stepped into the farmyard. Above him the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet, and the full moon bathed everything in its gentle glow. The world seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Pip climbed onto the old wooden fence post that marked the edge of the vegetable garden. This spot had always been his favorite thinking place, high enough to give him a good view of the world, but safe enough that he never felt afraid. Tonight, it would serve as his launching pad. With trembling paws, Pip carefully unfolded his flying machine. The gossamer wings caught the moonlight and shimmered like captured starlight. The silk cords felt smooth and strong in his tiny hands, and the delicate framework seemed to pulse with possibility. "This is it," Pip whispered to himself, his voice barely audible above the gentle night breeze. "This is the moment I've been dreaming of my entire life." He slipped his arms through the carefully crafted harness and adjusted the silk cords until everything felt perfectly balanced. The contraption was so light it seemed to float on its own, and Pip could feel the night air beginning to catch in the gossamer wings. Just as he was preparing to take his leap of faith, Pip heard a familiar voice calling softly from the darkness. "Pip, is that you out there?" His heart nearly stopped. It was his sister Daisy, and she was walking toward him across the moonlit yard. Behind her, he could see the rest of his family emerging from their cozy home, their eyes wide with worry and curiosity. "Oh no," Pip thought to himself. "They're going to try to stop me." But as his family gathered around the fence post, something unexpected happened. Instead of scolding him or trying to pull him down, they simply stood there in amazed silence, staring at his beautiful flying machine. "Pip," his mother said softly, her voice filled with wonder, "what have you created?" "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," whispered his father, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. His brothers and sisters gazed up at him with expressions of awe and admiration. For the first time in his life, they weren't laughing at his dreams or calling them silly. They were seeing them for what they truly were, magnificent and brave and full of hope. "I built it so I could fly," Pip said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I know you all think my dreams are foolish, but I had to try. I had to see if it was possible." His mother climbed up onto the fence post beside him, her eyes glistening with tears of pride. "Oh, my dear little Pip," she said, "we never thought your dreams were foolish. We were just afraid of losing you. But looking at what you've accomplished, seeing the determination and creativity in your heart, we realized that we were wrong to try to keep you from following your dreams." "You've worked so hard," his father added, climbing up to join them. "You've never given up, even when things seemed impossible. That takes real courage, son." One by one, his brothers and sisters climbed onto the fence post, surrounding Pip with love and encouragement. They had finally understood that his dream wasn't just about flying. It was about believing in himself and never giving up hope. "We're proud of you, Pip," Daisy said, giving him a gentle hug. "Whatever happens tonight, we want you to know that you're the bravest mouse we've ever known." Pip felt his heart swelling with happiness. Having his family's support meant more to him than anything else in the world. But even more importantly, he realized that he had already achieved something wonderful. He had shown them, and himself, that dreams were worth pursuing, no matter how impossible they might seem. "Thank you," Pip said, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for believing in me." With his family watching from below, Pip spread his gossamer wings and felt the night breeze lift them gently upward. The moonlight caught the delicate fabric, and for a moment, he truly looked like a magical creature from a fairy tale. "Here I go," Pip announced, his voice ringing with confidence and joy. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and leaped into the star-filled night. For a moment that seemed to last forever, Pip felt himself suspended between earth and sky, caught in the gentle embrace of the night wind. The gossamer wings billowed above him, and the silk cords held him steady as he began to drift slowly downward. It wasn't the soaring flight he had imagined, but it was something even more wonderful. He was flying, truly flying, gliding through the air with the grace of a dandelion seed and the joy of a bird taking its first flight. As he touched down gently in a patch of soft grass, Pip realized that his dream had come true in the most perfect way possible. He may not have soared high above the clouds, but he had lifted himself off the ground through his own determination and creativity. He had proven that even the smallest mouse could reach for the stars. His family rushed to surround him, their faces glowing with pride and happiness. They had witnessed something truly magical, not just Pip's flight, but the power of never giving up on your dreams. From that night forward, Pip continued to work on his flying machine, making improvements and modifications with each attempt. Sometimes he flew for only a few seconds. Other times he managed to glide for several minutes. But every flight was a victory, every attempt a step closer to his ultimate goal. And as the seasons changed and years passed, Pip's story spread throughout the farm and beyond. Other small creatures began to visit him, asking for advice about their own impossible dreams. Pip always told them the same thing Oliver had told him. The sky belongs to all who dare to reach for it. Your size may be small, but your dreams are mighty, and that is where your true strength lies. The little mouse had learned that dreams don't always come true in the way we expect them to, but they always come true in the way we need them to. His flight had lasted only minutes, but the joy and confidence it brought him would last a lifetime. And so, in the cozy farmhouse nestled between rolling green hills, Pip the mouse continued to dream and build and fly, proving to everyone who knew him that the biggest dreams often come from the smallest hearts. Now close your eyes, little one, and dream your own mighty dreams. For in the land of sleep, we all have gossamer wings, and the sky belongs to everyone who dares to reach for it. Sweet dreams.